Hello and welcome to Spread Book Joy. Today I've got a Joy Book Club pick for you. The Joy Book Club is a series that I do for people who subscribe to my website. The Joy Book Club is just a series of books where I've enjoyed the picture book so much that I've created a reading plan to support and enhance story time. Really excellent plans here, really comprehensive for teachers, parents or librarians or anyone who reads picture books for children. And in these plans you'll always get an overview of the themes, you'll get an overview of the book, recommended sort of age group, some available resources. I always look at vocabulary you might want to discuss and give you some suggested ways of explaining complex vocabulary to young children. And today we've got a bit of a phonics opportunity we'll talk about. You'll get pre-reading discussion questions to ask during reading, and these questions, if you want to, you don't have to ask all of them. I always say, you might not want to go through every single question here because it depends on how much you want to do, just enjoy the story. And I always recommend at the start of every Joy Book Club plan that you try the Aidan Chambers book talk first, which means reading the story, just read the story and then talk about the children's own responses to it afterwards with these basic questions here. And then if you're rereading the story again, you can get into more detail by asking some of these questions which are linked to specific reading skills such as inference, which is when we are not directly told something but we guess what's happened because of clues and context and things like that, or retrieval, which are questions where we're just looking for a specific answer that is in the text and we can just retrieve it out of the text. So some questions to ask during reading, after reading, and then some suggested reading for afterwards and some activities you might want to do afterwards. The activities that I list are usually more fun activities, more enrichment, so lots of art or music or maybe more topic based work, particularly as this is a space themed book. You might want to look a bit more about space and things like that. Today's book is Look Up by Nathan Bryon and Dapo Adiola. This book was a Waterstones Children's Book of the Year 2020. It won in the picture book category, and you can see it's an absolutely stunning book. It's really inviting and children will love the cover. What child doesn't love space? And as I film this, it is World Space Week, which is why I've picked Look Up as my pick for this week. So Nathan Bryon and Dapo Adiola, British author and illustrator, and they work really well together. They've created this character Rocket. Rocket is really ambitious and enthusiastic and full of wonder of the universe, and she's trying to get everyone around her to look up at the sky as much as she does, because what do we all do in this day and age? We look down at our phones. We don't take the bit of notice about what's going on around us. In terms of themes, you've got space, of course, an obvious one, but also aspiration and ambition. Rocket wants to be an astronaut just like her hero Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman in space, and so we could talk about ambitions, what we want to be when we grow up. She's also really trying to get everyone to look up at the sky, and her brother Jamal, as we'll go see when we go through the book, you'll see he's always looking down at his phone, and we're all guilty of that. So being present in the moment and enjoying the wonders of the world and the things around us and the people around us and being present for those people, really important themes. So I've given some vocabulary for discussion. There's lots of space-based technical vocabulary in here which I think is better discussed in context while you go through the book or after, so you don't sort of miss out on the joy of the story too much. And also you want to look up some of the things. So for instance, gravity is mentioned, things that are really well explained with videos. I've given some suggestions in my plan for that. What I would discuss beforehand is I'd take the opportunity to reinforce the sound. So look, 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 and I would reinforce this, like sort of sound the words out together, say, right, let's look at the title. What's this book called? Look, look up, up, look, look up, up, look up. And here I'll draw their attention to this sound. And when we go into the book and we meet Rocket in the first page of the book, we'll see that she has a telescope. So let's see if they understand. Does anyone know what this is? And it's a telescope. and I'd ask them if they can show me with their telescope with their own hands. So put their telescope together and put it up to their eye and have a look through their telescope. And I'd say, okay, there's lots of these sounds. Look, there's that sound again. And I say, every time we see that sound, I want you, every time you see it, to show me with your telescope that you see that sound. So that's quite a fun interactive way of checking, engaging that they've seen the sound or they've heard the sound. And it's really about hearing it as well as seeing it. So every time they see or hear it, get them to show you with their telescope so they've seen it. So we introduce and we find Rocket, and there she is in her bedroom, and she says, every night before bed I set up my telescope and look at the stars. I just love the illustrations in this book, they're fantastic. So real treat for the eyes, and there's so much to look at with the children. So going through, on the next page we meet her family, and we notice that her brother Jamal here is always looking down at her phone. She's always looking up. And one of the questions I've got in my plan is that Mum's always saying her head is always floating in the clouds. Obviously that's metaphorical and not literal, but I would discuss that with the children. What does that tell us about Rocket? What does that say? Mum tells me I never stop looking up, my head is always floating in the clouds. What does that mean? What does that tell us about her? Obviously it tells us she's a bit of a daydreamer, and she likes to imagine things quite a lot. Like she's always dreaming and imagining she's up in space. On the next page, in Rocket's face when she's getting her hair braided. So she says, Jamal says I'm called Rocket because I've got fiery breath, and Mum says it's because a famous rocket blasted off into space the day I was born. And here again it's sort of an inference actually. Well, who's right? Who's telling the truth here? And obviously Mum's telling the truth. Mum, and why would Jamal be saying things like that? Because they're brother and sister, and brothers and sisters tease each other like that. So here we see that and there are a lot of facts dotted about. Did you know? And these are really excellent. So Mae Jemison, that's her hero, and Mae Jemison went into orbit around Earth in Space Shuttle Endeavour, and she talks about that. And as we go through, there's lots of little facts about that. And then I love this scene here. This is how she's preparing herself for being in space. And as you can see, look, you've got words like gravity and meteor and things that you might want to explain afterwards, or during. I mean, in meteor shower, you want to talk about that during. Do they understand what a meteor shower is? And I've put some suggested ways of explaining meteors in my vocabulary section. So meteors obviously are shooting stars. Do they understand what that looks like? Well, that's going to be an amazing sight to see, and she wants everyone to see it. And this page I really like, and this one I've put in my plan that I would really examine this and draw attention. What's going on here? So what do you notice about the people in this picture? Everyone apart from that little child, I think, they're on their phones, reading the paper. I mean, actually even Rocket at this stage I think she's just daydreaming a little bit, but she's got her flyers there. She's not really looking down at her flyers, but the adults, everyone else is just distracted. They're not really looking around them. And that little child there, he's pointing at something. He's really eager and seeing something. And I think it just reminds us as well as adults that we don't look around us enough and notice what's going on and marvel in the wonders of what's going on around us. So Jamal takes her off to the supermarket, and at the supermarket she's got more facts here that she's telling everyone on the way, come and see the meteor shower, and she's got some more facts. Meteors are smaller than a grain of sand, most of them. They're bits of dust that burn up in the atmosphere. And then she takes, when they're queuing up, she takes the microphone and she uses it as her opportunity to advertise the meteor shower, and Jamal is not happy. And I would ask, well, it says he's a bit cross with me. Why is he cross with her? What's he cross with her about? She's possibly embarrassed him a bit. She's drawn attention to everybody. She's done something she shouldn't, because she really shouldn't have taken the microphone from the supermarket attendant. But I think he's just more embarrassed that she's drawn attention to them a little bit. On the way home as well, she's still talking about it, and a little accident happens here, and she says now Jamal is even more cross with me. Now, this I would discuss. The accident is an accident. It's neither of their faults really, but why is he cross with her? Well, she's laughing at him, and I think that's really, he's upset because he's wet and he's cold, and then she's laughing at him. So it's sort of things to discuss in terms of, well, what's gone on here, because some children might say she did that to him, but she didn't do that to him. It's just an accident. So Mum actually says to Jamal after he says, I'm not taking you to the park, and take her to the park, and she does this brilliant dance, and I would actually get the children to see if they can do the dance just in their own spot. Let's do a victory dance and jump around and do a victory dance. It's actually quite fun. You do it afterwards or do it during, but I probably, if I was doing it with the class, I would just get them all up to do it. It was quite fun. Okay, and then Jamal is still glued to his game, and he's saying, wait till I've completed my level, Rocket, and he grumbles. Now here we want to see, well, how's Jamal feeling about going to the park? And you can tell he's not very happy. She's worried. She's got a worried look on her face. He's still glued to his game, so he's still playing his game, and then he grumbles and he grumbles. So I'd say, well, how is he feeling about this? How do you know? And if no one mentions the word grumbles, I'd say, well, what does this word tell us? Is there a word that tells us? What does the word grumbles tell us about how he feels? Or is there a word that tells us how he feels? So she does persuade everyone, and the doorbell rings, and everybody that she's persuaded is coming to see the amazing meteor shower. So they go along to the park and everyone's looking around. I just love these scenes. They're really amazing. There's lots of detail in them. Everyone's looking up and looking in their telescopes, looking for the meteor shower, and they think they see one, but it's not one. It's just a plane, and they're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you can see like Rocket's getting more and more disappointed and worried, and then she starts to question it all. Maybe it was just a myth, maybe that's why he didn't want to come along, maybe everyone's upset with me. And what we notice here then when we look at the picture is, for the I don't know if it's the first time, but one of the first times in the book, Jamal is actually not looking at his phone, he's looking at Rocket. Why is he now looking at her? And he's looking at her because obviously he's worried, she's upset, and he's her big brother. When we turn the page here, she's never ever felt this sad before, and Jamal's looking at her and he says, I've turned my phone off, sis. So I would just talk about why has he turned his phone off, and the importance of recognising when someone's upset and being there for them. And it's really, I just love that part, that little scene, that little connection, her big brother looking after her. But it's not all lost, because suddenly there's a big bright light in the sky and everyone looks up. Oh, actually, I just said it as if I was reading it like looks up. I wouldn't read that like that. So everyone looks up. You could just read it out together. Let's all read it together. Look up. And you've got all these exclamation marks. And then you've got the lovely meteor shower at the end, and they share some hot chocolate. And then they both sit down on the hill watching the meteors zoom across the sky. I'm so happy we looked up and saw them together. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. If you like these questions, if you like a copy of the plan, I've not gone through all of the questions in the plan. I didn't want this to be a long video. This is just a walkthrough of the book and just a little bit of an introduction of how I might read it with the children, and there are some suggested activities to do afterwards. If you like this, then don't forget to click like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you want the plan, in the description box below, click the link and sign up to my website, and you'll receive any forthcoming notifications for any Joy Book Club plans that I produce, and you'll have access to all of them. And if you like this, don't forget, click like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.